My recipe for berry cobbler is easy and delicious. This is based on the mixed berry dumplings I did earlier this summer. They were really good, and I wanted to see how that same flavor combination would work out in a cobbler. As you can see, I am using frozen berries, so if you just want to use a bag of frozen mixed berries, that would work as well, but I really like the combination of half strawberries and half blueberries. Here in this pot, I have a total of 24 ounces or 3 cups or 680 grams of frozen berries, half strawberries, half wild blueberries. You could use regular blueberries as well, but the wild blueberries, I think they have more blueberry flavor. For the strawberries, I am using frozen sliced strawberries. Whole strawberries is absolutely fine. For some reason, the sliced strawberries were on sale. Like I said, they're frozen. I did not thaw them at all, so you can make this quickly and easily without having to worry to thaw the frozen berries. I'm going to start out by cooking the berries on the stovetop, just like all of my other Southern cobbler recipes. And to the berries, I'm going to add half a cup, or as I measure, 105 grams of white sugar, a quarter cup, or as I measure it, 60 grams of light brown sugar, 2 tablespoons of lemon juice, 1/8 teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of lemon zest, the zest of 1 large lemon. If you don't have lemon zest, then I would do half a teaspoon of lemon extract, because the conversion is for every 1 teaspoon of extract, you need 2 teaspoons of zest. I know this ingredient is kind of controversial. I'm going to add a 1/4 teaspoon of cinnamon. I added the cinnamon to the dumplings, the mixed berry dumplings. They were absolutely phenomenal. I like the cinnamon in there. I made a pie version of this recently. Not sure when that will go up, and I felt like a little bit of cinnamon would have benefited it, so I'm going to add that in. I know that some people might think it's odd adding cinnamon to strawberries and blueberries, so if you do not want to do that, you do not have to. I'm also going to add some water, probably a total of 3/4 of a cup, we'll see, but I'm going to start out with half a cup of water. I know it seems weird adding water to berries that I'm about to cook, but if I don't add any kind of liquid at all, the berries will burn before they have a chance to soften. I'm going to put some sugar on top of the cobbler. I'm going to make a slurry with some cornstarch later, with 2 tablespoons or 20 grams of cornstarch and about a 1/4 cup of water. Now all I have to do is turn the heat on to high and bring these frozen berries to a boil. My mixed blueberries and strawberries have been on high heat for about 5 or 6 minutes, and they're starting to come to a boil. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn down the heat to medium from gas mark 6 out of 6 to 3 out of 6, and I'm going to cook them on medium heat for 10 minutes, stirring fairly constantly, making sure that it does not start to foam and rise up and boil over. So do not walk away from this, stand near it, and especially for the beginning of the 10 minutes, keep stirring. My berries have now been cooking on medium heat for 10 minutes. They have reduced. I tasted it. It tastes great. So I'm going to turn off the heat. And now for the cornstarch slurry. Like I said, a 1/4 cup of water and 2 tablespoons or 20 grams of cornstarch. I am not adding the cornstarch directly to the berries, because if you do that, the berries, what's a way to say this? cornstarch does not incorporate into hot liquids. You have to mix it into a cool or room temperature liquid first and then add it to a hot liquid, otherwise it's not going to work. So that's what I did here. You might also be wondering, Parnell, why didn't you just add the cornstarch in the beginning? That is because overcooked cornstarch, oh, and see, it thickened up almost immediately. See, as I stir it, it is thicker in just 15 seconds. If you add cornstarch to the beginning or at the beginning, that might not work out, because if you boil cornstarch for a really long time, it can actually lose its thickening power. So that's why I'm adding it now at the end. And now for the dumplings in my recipe for berry cobbler. A lot of southern style cobblers have dumplings or little pieces of pie dough in the fruit filling itself. If you don't want to do this, that's fine. You just get 2 9-inch pie crusts and take one, put it in your 8x8 casserole dish and poke some holes in it with a fork in maybe 5 or 6 places. Bake it at 350 Fahrenheit uncovered, and then you'll have a bottom crust. But I really like the combination of soft crust inside and crispy crust on top. And honestly, I think that the dumplings, some of the flour comes off and helps to thicken the berry filling a little bit, so it has a purpose. But like I said, if you just want a double crusted berry cobbler, that's fine as well. Here I have a homemade 9-inch pie crust. Feel free to use store-bought. I just cut it into strips between maybe 3/4 of an inch and 1.5 inches thick. And then I went through and I just made some smaller cuts to make individual pieces, these dumplings. I'm actually going to break these apart even more, some of them. They're kind of falling apart as I add them, so that's okay. And as you add them, after you've added, I don't know, maybe 2 strips, you probably want to give this a stir. And as you stir the dumplings, they will start to break apart. So even if your dumplings are kind of big, when you cut them, they will fall apart as you stir them into the berry filling. I'm going to continue doing this, and then I will bring you back. I just finished adding the pie crust dumplings to my berry filling. It's kind of hard to see, but as I stirred, like I said was going to happen, the pie crust dumplings were going to break apart into even smaller pieces. I think you'll be able to see better once I pour everything into this dish. I have an 8x8 casserole dish that is very well buttered. Butter makes everything better. And I'm simply just going to pour everything into the casserole dish. Like I said, you can see it a little bit better now. The dumplings, they broke apart as I added them. Now they're perfect. I did not add all of the pie crust because I was thinking, oh, maybe it's not necessary. But you know what? I'm just going to add more. And now is the time before you put on the top to make sure that the dumplings and the berries are evenly distributed. So if you see a place that doesn't have a lot of dumplings, make sure you add some and mix everything together. The last step in my recipe for berry cobbler is putting on the top. So just like when I made the dumplings, I took a 9-inch pie crust and I cut it into strips about it, I'd say a little more than 1 inch thick. All I'm going to do is peel them off and literally just place them on top. And that one is falling apart, so maybe I'll put that off to the side. I am flipping the strips over because I feel like when they're flipped over, it looks a little bit nicer. The part that was rolled, I rolled this pie crust between two pieces of wax paper. I feel like the part that was touching the wax paper looks a little bit better, but honestly, it does not matter. You can see I'm literally just pulling them off and dropping them on. This works a lot better if your dough is cold. If your dough is room temperature, this is going to be very, very difficult. So make sure that your dough is chilled. The last one, I think I can do a full strip, yeah. And now for the other way, all I'm going to do is just peel off strips and then literally, we'll start over here. Just lay them on top. I would not attempt braiding this because the filling is too juicy. I think that's just extra work and it's probably not going to work out, so do not attempt, is my recommendation. I'm going to cut another strip here. See, like I said, just cut the strip, peel it off, and put it on. You don't have to have a certain number of strips. You could do more, less, whatever you want. Now the last step, the really last step in my recipe for berry cobbler is sprinkling on some sugar. Here I have 1 tablespoon each of white sugar and light brown sugar. I like to sprinkle sugar on top of all of my fruit pies and cakes. I think it adds some nice crunch, some nice texture, and also a bit of extra sweetness because I do add sugar to my filling, but not as much as I think some people would. So this is a good way to sweeten it up a little bit more. I'm literally just going to sprinkle it on top, aiming for the dough. That look a little bit better. Like I said, I'm aiming for the dough, but if I get it into the berries, that's totally fine. My homemade mixed berry cobbler is going to cook in a 350-degree oven, uncovered for 50 minutes, I'm guessing. But I will let you know. And last but not least, whenever you're making a cobbler or a pie that is fruit-based, please, please, please do not just put it on an oven rack. Put it on top of something like, in this case, a pizza pan or a cookie sheet. Just something so that if it boils over, it doesn't boil over onto the bottom of your stove, because that's going to be, as the Argentines would say, a quilombo, a hassle to clean up. My mixed berry cobbler just came out of the oven. It was in at 350 degrees Fahrenheit, uncovered for 50 minutes. 50. This cobbler looked and smelled great, so just like all the others, I was very eager to dig in and give it a try. This mixed strawberry and blueberry cobbler was absolutely delicious. First of all, the appearance. I thought it looked really good, like an old-fashioned cobbler. What was interesting is that just like the blueberry cobbler, this mixed strawberry and blueberry cobbler had some of the filling bubble up along the sides. So maybe blueberry filling bubbles up more than others. I don't know. Although the color of the filling was very similar to the blueberry cobbler, adding the strawberries definitely lightened it a bit and turned it from a dark purple to a reddish purple, which was very nice. I also like the fact that the cobbler was not runny. Once I cut the first slice, you will see that it held its shape perfectly. The combination of the cornstarch slurry and the lattice top, which allowed extra moisture to evaporate, doing a good job of thickening the filling. Speaking of the lattice top, it turned perfectly golden brown along with the extra sugar that I sprinkled on top. I was really pleased with how this cobbler looked, and I was even more pleased when I tried it. As I'm sure you remember, I've experimented with strawberries and blueberries a lot this summer. I made some dumplings, I made a pie, and this cobbler. And in all three cases, I really liked that flavor combination. Much more so than the combination of berries that most people would call quote unquote mixed berries. Although I think that you could definitely make this recipe for berry cobbler using a bag of mixed frozen berries, a combination of blackberries, blueberries, strawberries, and blueberries. I highly recommend that you follow my recipe and use half strawberries and half blueberries. In addition to the berries themselves, I think that adding lemon and cinnamon really helps to make this cobbler great. In addition to the flavors, I really like the textures in this cobbler. The pie crust dumplings inside were soft and pillowy, and the pie crust on top was crispy and delicious. Although this cobbler was great on its own, you could definitely eat it with a scoop of vanilla ice cream. Like I said, my recipe for berry cobbler was a great success. Although it was definitely similar to the blueberry cobbler, it had a unique taste all to its own. You need to make this recipe if you're like me and you love fruit-based pies and cobblers, but you're running out of options because you've pretty much made them all already. This cobbler is perfect if you like the idea of making a mixed berry cobbler using frozen berries, but you don't want the seediness that comes from blackberries or raspberries. Although summertime is perfect for a mixed berry cobbler like this one, since I used frozen strawberries and frozen blueberries, you can make this cobbler at any time of the year. I'm sure that putting a summer-like dessert on your Thanksgiving table or Christmas table would bring a lot of smiles. As always, thanks for watching. See you next time.